What else do we
What else
got?
did we have?
I picked up a game. This was kind of a surprise to me. I was watching a Digital Foundry video about the Famicom disk system. You guys remember that thing?
Famicom, yeah.
Yes.
It was basically a floppy disk system for the Japanese Famicom that came out in like 1983 or 4 or something like that. In it, they kind of mentioned this game called 1980X. It's spelled out 198X. And it's available on Steam right now. I believe it's on PlayStation as well. And they talked about it just enough to pique my interest. So I went and downloaded it. It's fairly cheap. I think it's like $10.
Oh,
and
it's not bad.
what it is it's a retro kind of smorgasbord of different games and story that is very 1980s and like, you know, kind of that synth wave that's very popular right now, whole aesthetic. It's got a bunch of kind of 1980s and arguably 1990s mini games in it that are games that are like things that you'll remember. It's not the games themselves. So like they have like an Outrun type game, which is a driving game. They have like a Shinobi style ninja game.
Ooh.
They have a Streets of Rage style beat 'em up. They have an R-type style shooter, like stuff like that. I think there's like 5 or 6 of the games in total. But what's really weird about the game, and I'm not actually sure I'm on board with it, I think this is going to be kind of hit or miss, is it does this kind of, I think, visual novel style presentation where you play as a kid alive in the 1980s, and it's kind of a coming of age story with this kid. And at times, it's really fucking cool because you're playing Outrun, or the game's version of Outrun, and you're driving, you know, you're playing like just the regular arcade game, and then all of a sudden, the timer at the top of the thing to get from checkpoint to checkpoint disappears, and now you're just driving, and you're still going around corners, and you're still navigating traffic, but a voiceover starts, and the kid starts talking about how the fantasy of playing Outrun, like what that fantasy meant to him growing up.
That actually
part
sounds
was
pretty cool.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
But then there's also parts where it's just like this graphic novel kind of thing where it's just really, really cool pixel art of like the kid walking through the streets, finding the arcade, kind of finding the people, like, and seeing how, oh, these are my people. I've never been able to identify, you know, I've never found people that like felt like they enjoy the same things as me. To me, that's a little sappy, and it's a little like, I've had enough of the teenage angst story, you know, over the years that like I'm kind of over it. It's kind of like stories about like alcoholism. Like I've seen that story so many times in so many different mediums that I don't want to watch it anymore. It's sad and it's
We're
depressing.
ready
I
for
just
the
don't want to watch it.
cocaine stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean. It's like how many
Yeah,
times am I going to watch something like something that really takes apart addiction? I've seen that. You know, like you're gonna have to really do something crazy with it. And same goes with kind of the teenage angst, like coming of age story. I've seen it so many times that you've really got to add something to it to make me like take notice. And so a little bit of that is kind of boring to me. But what I really like about the game is that it does all these different game modes, and it does them well. Like the Outrun version, you know, the Outrun style game is really fun. The Streets of Rage clone, I think, is excellent. And it does them for like about 2 levels, and then it moves on. So you never like kind of get sick of the game mode. Like you play it for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then you move on. You see a little bit of story, and you go to the next game.
They hit you with something else. Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like it just makes, so you're like kind of looking forward to each one when it happens, but you never have time to get sick of it, if that makes sense. Because that can be a problem with retro gaming. Is it's cool to play like this old like 1980s game for 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, now let's play something, you know, like more modern.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like it's the story of this coming of age story of this boy, but you're like playing through his story, playing all these retro games.
Yeah. So it's presented.
That's a
it's
really
presented.
cool concept.
Yeah.
It is a cool concept.
That's very cool.
And I think if you're into that style of storytelling, you'd like it even more than I do. What I really like is the presentation of the old games. I think the presentation of the story is a little hit or miss for me personally.
Yeah,
but for $10, it's
really
definitely
cool.
worth a look.
Yeah, I think I might check that out because that's just such a cool concept, right? That you're telling this overarching story of this boy kind of coming of age, but it's all told through you playing these retro games. That's really cool. That's a cool concept.
Yeah, cool concept.
And like again, they'll actually morph the game. At certain points, it feels like you're just playing R-Type, right? As you've got like your little ship and you're moving around the screen trying to avoid bullet hell, and you're shooting a boss on the screen. And then it kind of like zooms out, slows down, and like a voiceover will start, and you'll still be playing the game, but it's changed a little bit to match kind of the story he's telling. It's a cool effect. Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with it just because there's so much. I just got an Oculus Rift S, and like I'm really enjoying playing that.
Nice.
So I'm not sure I'm gonna stick with it and play it to the end, but I do really dig kind of. It feels fresh and it feels like. What was the game? I can't remember what the game was. Where it was a collection of small mini games that felt like old NES games.
Ooh.
And you played each one of them for like a little bit of time, and then moved on to the next. God, it'll come to me later. I can't remember. Never mind.
Yeah, I do really like the concept. It seems like something fresh and different to try and tell a story through that. So that's cool. And for $10, I think it's worth checking out.
Oh yeah, and the art and the music. I mean, it's completely like that synthwave music that's really, really popular right now. Like the art is beautiful. It's like this pixel art that everything is animated just so like any picture of this game could be a screensaver. You know what I mean? Like that. It's just really cool looking. I really like it.
Nice. I might have to check that out.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth checking out for $10.
Nice.